those can also be funded within the original appropriation. These additional funds would allow for the restoration of the sides, which is the east and west windows. Excellent write-up by whoever put that together. Made me actually sound fully knowledgeable about all the pieces. So I guess just want to open up the floor to some discussion before we consider taking a potential vote to recommend, and see if people wanted to add some color or opine, or if we were ready to take a vote.
I think, if I may, Tom, I'm 100% for moving forward with this proposal for the town hall. I think my questions and concerns were answered. Actually, Wendy Nightingale had addressed the issue that I had, that specifically that we become the wheelhouse for future projects ongoing, that we are going to be the main drive for repairing so many of our public buildings, which that's what we're here for, but we only have so many funds, as I have stated and everyone else has in the past. But I'm ready to move forward with the vote.
I think that's a fair assessment, John. I think that echoes how I feel as well. I think that there is good reason to be concerned about how we allocate our funds regarding school, town projects, and all others that come before us. So I would agree. I feel as if in the last session we had that answered.
Yeah, we did.
If there are no other comments, then I would take a vote regarding the town offices restoration project to recommend, if somebody would like to. So
I move we recommend the town hall project for the town warrant.
Second, Sheedy.
So that's Lee and Sheedy, and going in order, Jim Lee.
Aye.
Greg Strange.
Strange, aye.
Ed Hands has not made it back yet. Tom Broussard's an aye. Dennis Sheedy.
Aye.
John Ventresco.
Tresco, aye.
Amanda Varela.
Aye.
And Meredith Keach.
Each aye.
Excellent. Thank you all so much.
Tom,
Next up is the Unionville Field revitalization. Also known as
Tom, I think Greg is.
I just wanted to thank you very much for the vote. I just wanted to bring something else up with the CPC. There's additional funds that are out there right now that were appropriated for previous projects, about $60,000 worth for previous repairs. We can't use them directly right now for this project without CPC intervention because it's explicitly stated to use them for masonry work. And we're not really using it. There's really no masonry component for this particular project. But according to Wendy Nightingale, town accountant, if the committee wants to, at the next meeting, appropriate those funds and apply it to this, you can do that. Go ahead, Wayne.
I think Wendy said that the way that would work is the warrant article at town meeting would be for the $225,000 and then identify the sources of funds. So of that 225, 62 or 63 that remains from unspent from previous projects would be reauthorized by town meeting vote to be used for this. And then the balance would be, CPA funds in hand or borrowing.
So the good news is that those monies are out there. So even though we're asking for 225, 60 is already there. We're just asking for 160. So just to keep the board informed for that.
No, Greg, that's perfect. I had misread that. I had erroneously read that as we were going to still have 63 grand from the original appropriation to leverage for other aspects of the project, and this would be 225 more. So I appreciate you bringing that to surface and trying to be as efficient as possible with all the funds that are available. So I think if that's fair, I think we would all be in agreement that essentially that's how we would prefer that it be presented to the public, which is to use all the funds of the 63 previously and then the additional remainder to get to 225.
Yeah, there was a little confusion going back and forth just about how to allocate those funds, but those funds were meant for repairing town hall and they're already there. So it's just a little it takes a little more off the top.
Sure.
And in doing our numbers in our analysis for this particular project, this money is really contingency when we add it to the alts 3 and 4. I'm not going to say I'm going to be able to return the entire appropriation. We are dealing with a 100-year-old building, but it's there for insurance. So I feel good about this project. I feel confident, and we're ready to get going.
Good.
I have a specific recollection. Did we not accept some funds that had been allocated for town hall back to kind of wipe them off the books, or is this different money?
I think you might be remembering, and we'd have to do some research. There was a discussion on some of these funds, and they were approved to be used on some of this exterior work, and I believe they were not enough to actually do anything
Okay.
that needed to be done, so they're still there.
Okay.
Would it be helpful to actually have a motion to clarify that we can use those funds for this project?
Wendy said that the way to do that is to have it written out in the warrant that's voted on at town meeting, and that is what authorizes the use of the funds. So the vote would authorize the 60 some remaining for this work, plus the additional funds to get to the 225 total.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Appreciate, Greg. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and certainly appreciate the town's commitment to always try to be as efficient and effective with the use of the dollars as possible. So that is welcome. I think our second item up that we're moving on to was the Unionville Field revitalization, also known as pickleball amendment. I think we've all had a fair amount of discussion for this, but I will read the short description if that's okay as well for everybody, just so that we understand it. This CPA funding application is for construction of 6 pickleball courts at the town's Unionville Field recreation area and associated infrastructure such as an expanded parking area, creation of an ADA path linking the parking lot with the courts, site grading for stormwater management, other project elements, equipment, and landscaping. By way of history, a 2019 CPA grant funded design plans and specifications. 2020, a $320,000 CPA grant was awarded for construction. Bids were received that were between $400,000 and more than $700,000. The project scope was slightly revised. Cost estimates have been updated to reflect construction price increases not anticipated in the earlier application and award. And the revised total project cost is $573,650. This additional $253,650 would allow the project to go out to bid to construct all 6 originally planned courts. That's still the accurate, just want to make sure that's still the accurate assessment of 6, or is it 4 and 1 and 1? Just want to, for my own edification, I get tripped up at times.
So the total project cost $573,650, which requires the additional $253,650 is for all 6 courts. We have written the bid so that courts 5 and 6 are alt ads. In the event that the bids come in higher than this amount, the town could proceed expectedly with at least the 4 courts.
I might just add that in for this language for explanation for the general public so that they can appreciate that the intent is that this funding is to get the pickleball courts built, and that ending build out may be anywhere between, if I interpreted your language correctly, Stephanie, as low as 4 and as much as 6, assuming it fits within the budget of the monies that have been appropriated. Is that a fair summary?
I think so. The total right now, the cost estimate with all 6 pickleball courts is $573,650, which is just under 600,000. And yes, it is the intent to construct all 6 courts. We're kind of hedging our bets that if for some reason they come in very high again, that at least 4 courts can be built with the money that's being allocated.
Right, we want 6, but if 573, 650 gets you 5, we're gonna go with 5.
Yes,
So
Yes.
I feel like just to be transparent with the general public, we might want to find a way to word that in the summary, or at least add in the bid process so that if we do construct 5 for 573, 650, they don't feel as if, hey, you said I was getting 6 quarts for this.
yes. Now, the other thing, we've been talking about going out to bid, similar to what the town offices did, going out to bid, getting the bids in so we know ahead of town meeting so that we know what the cost actually will be. We're in a little different situation because with the town offices, there's sufficient funds already to proceed with a project, if I'm not mistaken, Greg? Swan? I don't know.
I don't have, are we talking, I'm sorry.
I'm just comparing the pickleball court that what's different. So
Yes, we have funds right now to go forward with.
that you
town
could
hall
go
exterior. What
forward.
I would recommend with this one is going forward and seeing what the bids come in at and getting those opened up. By the time you come back to your April meeting, you can have you can know what you're getting and how much you have to appropriate, and you can make a valued cost then. Do you
Right.
order the whole menu, or do you order just, appetizer, the meal with appetizers A and B?
Right. So I just want to share, though, that I did talk with town council to make sure that we could do that. And they indicated that certainly we could. The potential challenge there is that if we go out to bid too early, though the bidders will need to hold their bid prices open until town meeting. And that's an
Stephanie, you can word that into the contract that it's dependent on you when you put it out to bid.
So if I could finish, that's not the question, because I understand that. He said we can do it. The concern is, will you get bids if bidders feel they have to hold a price for an elongated period of time? I was talking with Dick Kelly about this earlier, and he felt that probably wouldn't be an issue, that we would get bids. And that is, as Greg is saying, we have the language in the bid documents and the period of time they need to be open, that we will get the bids that we need to do that. And then we can refine, once we get those bids, we can refine the ask to match.
I would recommend we undertake that then so that we can have a better answer, and we're looking to get those bids in so that we can, at our April meeting, make a vote as to recommending this particular aspect with the greater detail. Is that
Finite? Mhm.
or finite is the
Yeah.
best way to say?
Yeah.
Dick, you're muted, Dick, if you're trying to speak.
Okay, here we go. Can you hear me?
We got you.
When this thing goes out for bid, the bidders aren't even gonna know that we are underfunded. Right?
Right,
They have no idea how much money we have, so they're still gonna bid on it.
right.
And if they want to bow out, they can bow out if we tell them.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's their option.
Yep.
Well, I was just gonna say, they could be watching.
Yeah, does everybody, but does that feel like a good course of action? So we won't take a vote on this regarding recommendation now. Instead, we'll instruct to go to get bids, and that way we'll have a finite item that we can make a recommendation vote at a future meeting on.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, hearing nobody say no, thank you all so much. Appreciate that. And Stephanie, you'll keep us in the loop as we get that out and
Yes.
bring that live, get bids and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Perfect. Next up is the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall.
Okay, well, thank you.
Flip my notes. By way of a short description and a bit of history, just for all of our committee and the public's edification. 2015, the H.H. Richardson designed Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, a national landmark, was comprehensively assessed, generating a master plan to restore the building in phases to its full glory and provide amenities for its use as a community gathering space and function rental hall at a cost of $6.5 million in 2015 dollars. To date, $700,000 of work has been accomplished with a combination of community preservation grants, mass preservation project fund grants, and private donations. This accomplished masonry restoration, window and stained glass restoration, roof repairs, all designed to ensure a weather-tight enclosure and respect for the architectural heritage of the hall. In 2019, a business and operations plan was produced, funded by the Mass Cultural Facilities Fund. The findings reinforced the need to provide full handicapped access, HVAC for year-round comfort, handsome and well-maintained interiors, reinforcing the historic character that makes this building unique and marketable, and adequate parking. The goal is for the hall to be fully self-sustaining based on function rentals while continuing to serve as a community resource. Today, the association seeks funding for construction documents, cost estimating for the next phase of work, completing the interior infrastructure, HVAC and electrical, and finishes restoration, elevator and kitchen, structural repairs, and the site work, including an expanded parking lot and restoration of the grand staircase from Barrow Street to the hall. At this time, this is estimated at $8.5 million, including soft costs and contingencies. The increase in costs from the 2015 estimates reflects inflation, present volatility in construction costs, and added scope. This is described in the attachment. The concept for this CPA grant request is to develop the design and the complete construction documents to the 75% level and engage an independent cost estimator to prepare detailed cost estimates. So hopefully with that, that is a good summary. The grant request total amount is $507,600. And again, as a reminder, the total construction cost estimated at $8.5 million. Is there anybody on the committee that has questions or would like to discuss components? I do know that a schedule of the breakout of the costs of the $507,000 were provided. I fear I have lost it in all of my minutes, but I believe I have found it. Oh, I'm sorry, this was the grants projects listing that I had printed off. Does anybody have questions on this that they would like to entertain or discuss regarding the $507,600 request from the committee? Meredith?
Just not regards to the 500, but a question for Fred in what the plan is to raise the $8.5 million to get the total project done. I know that it's a big number, and I just curious if there's a plan to obtain funding for the total cost.
Okay, I guess you're asking is what is the private contribution going to be? I would say in a capital campaign, we're looking at anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million as the goal we are aiming for. And that's where it stands right now, based on past giving, prospective donors we haven't approached yet. So we're very much in the formative stage, but we would like to make an appreciable contribution to this project, considering the amount of money being produced by the CPA funds.
And it looks like, Meredith, to your separate, I guess a follow-up question would be what grants might be available. And Lynn did provide, I believe, a listing of potential grants, including $200,000 from the Mass Cultural Facilities Fund, $500,000 from Save America's Treasures, $50,000 from the Massachusetts Preservation Projects Funds, $250,000 from the Amelia Peabody Charitable Fund or foundation such as, and I don't want to mislead anybody, those are not grants that have been received. Those are just potential sources of additional support. So in terms of round numbers, Meredith, it feels like Fred is looking at a high end of close to $1 million. These grants might be close to $1 million. That would be $2 million of an $8.5 million project, I feel, as if we've defined. And then I would assume that the rest of the ask would be from other sources, including coming back to us for an amount.
Strategically, has there been any consideration of splitting out the work to the building and the parking, given the previous opposition at town meeting to the parking?
Mr. Chairman, may I just jump in?
Certainly, Lynn. And
Sure.
Just before you do, Lynn, just one point. I think, Amanda, I think you're absolutely right. It would be important to know the pieces. That's actually why I'm partly inclined to understand what that cost is by including it in this $507,600 kind of cost estimate so we can break out those pieces with some good certainty. And then that way have a more engaging vote later on regarding the pieces, so to speak, parking being the largest versus the rest of the project. But Lynn, thank you for pausing and please go for it.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight. So based on the last session I attended with this committee, I did follow through by breaking out the fees between the building project and the parking. And with that, the parking lot project also includes creating the walkways between the hall and the library campus. So there was a detailed breakdown of those two things. So just in words, the building related fees to the 75% level for an accurate cost estimate were estimated at $323,050. And the parking lot with the walkways is estimated at $180,550.
To be clear, I did see that in the information that was provided. I was speaking more about separating the two projects.
Right.
Because I think you'll get some pretty serious opposition to the parking that you would not get to the work on the hall itself.
Right. And so in the attached cost estimate that I provided, as you know, in terms of the capital assumptions, I had separated the parking lot from, in terms of the estimated capital cost from the building. So let me just reach into my pile. That is estimated at a construction cost for the parking and the walkways at $1,351,660.
Leaving basically 7.15 million to get to 8.5 million total for
Right.
the rest of the project.
Right. And that was for construction costs. Then the soft cost and contingency did sort of bump that up to $1.8 million, $92 as a number. And that's on one of these spreadsheets that was attached to the submission. So I realize it was a lot of material to wade through, and I really appreciate the patience of the committee in allowing me the additional time to work with Fred and the association to break these costs out and provide them.
And I think that's a fair question. I would hope, and I've spoken with several residents in the community, and I think this is a topic that people feel pretty strongly about on both sides so far. I've heard people articulating the importance of the campus style connection and enabling a free flow of resident activity amongst the different buildings on what would be, in that particular example, a campus. And I certainly feel strongly when I hear commentary, both in the initial feedback at the town meeting directly, and certainly the points that Meredith has raised about other opportunities for parking that existed and may exist in the future in downtown, and what our role plays in it. I think it's fair that it's within the jurisdiction if it's part of this larger project for at least consideration. I think, in speaking for all of us, if it was just a parking lot that we were approached with, that we would know that wouldn't fall under our purview. And it's a tough one. I think we've seen how that area of town has come together and developed, especially regarding the library and the Queesit House. I would be inclined to spend the money to understand more of the details of the costs. So that way, if we do go forward with an application that's received for the larger project, we would be able to provide the facts for the residents of the town so that they could have them and make an informed decision at that point in the future. If that's fair, and I certainly welcome other people's thoughts on it as well.
If I may,
please.
As someone who's spent quite a bit of time pondering this for the last few years, I think one underutilized approach, at least regarding the parking, is to seek out donations, in-kind labor. There's different ways. There's more than one ways to slice it up. And, you know, when you talk to folks that do this for a living, the cost is, you know, the hard cost is probably, you know, 800,000. Of course, when we deal with the municipality, things blow up, but I think their legal minds could maybe find a way that we could get this donated. And I know there's interest in that from having shaken the trees over the last couple of years.
Are you amenable to the approach of the application, the current application of the roughly $507,600, $507,600 to proceed? And certainly at a point in the future, we may be able to leverage private funds as part of that discussion of the future funding.
If you're asking me, yes, I am, because, you know, you're never going to find a true cost of any project until you have documents. And as we've all, you know, this, it's a blessing and a curse, right? We were left all these great buildings, but boy, are they expensive to maintain. But this is, as we know, it was Unitarian Church, and then it was the library, and then it was Queesa. It came in right down. These are in 100-year cycles, and it's time to finish this one up. And you know, it's been a white elephant ever since it was turned down in revolt not to be the town hall that it was donated for. So we need to unify the campus, tie in economic development, historic preservation, all the things that I've babbled on about endlessly, and I'll be succinct, but yeah, we need contract documents so that we can get an accurate price, especially on something of this nature.
Meredith, Amanda, I know you both feel strongly as well. Is this an amenable solution to proceed with the $507,600 for now, get the information on all of the components, and then put forth from a larger discussion, the debate regarding whether or not and how parking may proceed?
I would reluctantly support, but in hearing these numbers, it would be cheaper to buy a butter's houses.
Fair.
I'm in agreement. I think, you know, just adding my 2 cents here, this is a building that we, to Greg's point, we have to care for. As we've seen, as he illustrated, you know, the expense of maintaining an antique building is ungodly at times. And the viability of the hall necessitates parking. And, you know, that's been an ongoing discussion that we've had for some time. And there has to be a solution that works for everyone. And I think that that's, you know, that's a must.
Yeah.
But I'm in agreement.
To be clear, I have a very hard time envisioning people being not recognizing that this is incredibly important for the work on the hall itself. And I'm just concerned that the visceral reaction that people will have to changing the whole, you know, putting a parking structure there, I don't want to see that torpedo the entire project.
Agreed. And maybe our recommendation as we get information back from these cost estimates, our recommendation may be to give some advice on what those future applications might look like. And I said applications plural because the advice might be we would recommend 2, for example. And in that way, to your point, I think there's some pretty strong alignment around the actual asset or building itself. And I think then that way, by being smart, we can inform people and help them make an informed decision regarding supporting items like a parking component. John, Jim.
Just a comment, and I think we probably, you know, hashed this out multiple times. To me, the hall's a 2-prong. Obviously, the restoration of this historic structure that's a gem in our community. And second, to get it up to par where you can have things like the air conditioning and so forth inside, where it's a viable use for a lot more ongoing renters. In order to do that, and we can't underestimate and overemphasize enough, after this has been approved, these funds, that the key to this whole project, as we've all discussed multiple times and we've done tonight, is that parking issue. Because we can spend all that money to get this up to par inside. It's not going to be worth a hill of beans if we can't get cars to park in there. It's going to be a hornet's nest. I actually like what you said, Amanda, earlier. It would be easier to buy a butter's property, then it's a great idea. And it's something, you know, if it was viable and people were interested, who knows? But that's thinking out of the box, and I like that. But key ingredient here. So once this has been approved tonight, I'm assuming that we can't go any further without having that piece tied into this for the future. Because to spend, I mean, if this is any sign of, and I know Fred had mentioned, and also Lynn, that there is a contingency in this, but contingencies tend to go even higher than that. So I'm thinking close to $10 million. It's a lot of money, and and there's no question this building needs to. We have no other way of getting around it. But in order to sell this to every taxpayer in this community, including everyone on this board, we need that, again, that parking issue resolved. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, John. Jim, Dennis, did you want to make any comments or?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, sir.
I'm good too.
All right. So with that, I think we have consensus. So with that, I would ask for the committee to vote to recommend the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall application in the amount of $507,600 for our May 2022 annual town meeting. I'll take a motion.
So moved, Lee.
Ventresco, aye.
So that's Lee and Ventresco. Going in order, Jim Lee.
Aye.
Greg Strange.
Aye.
Do not believe Ed Hands has joined yet. If anybody sees him, if they could just let me know, it'd be great. Tom Broussard is an aye. Dennis Sheedy.
Aye.
John Ventresco.
Aye.
Amanda Varela.
Aye.
Meredith Keach.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Lynn, thank you so much for taking your time and continuing to strive to keep us informed. Fred, as always, thank you so much for your passionate advocacy and helping us understand all the variables as well. It's appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thank you, committee.
Thank you all. Okay, moving on next to the Southeastern Cemetery Fence Amendment. Moment while I scroll through. Okay, by way of summary explanation, this is a $105,100 request. Short project description. This project will complete the restoration and reconstruction of Southeastern Cemetery's historic circa 1850s iron fence along Washington Street. This project will replicate approximately 90 feet of iron fence and install 14 concrete fence footings for the missing northern third of the cemetery's fence line. Will also include the fabrication of 2 additional sections to be stored against future damage and replacement. A 2019 CPA grant in the amount of $40,550, including also private donations of more than $18,000 and voluntary masonry demolition labor, restored the deteriorated sections along the southern 2/3 of the fence line, rebuilt all 8 brick pillars along the entire frontage, and planted a dozen young shade trees along the public roadway. I do believe we also spent some time talking about this, but I do want to pause just in case anybody has any additional questions or thoughts on the matter. All right, hearing none, I would take a motion to accept and recommend the application for the Southeastern Cemetery Fence Amendment in the amount of $105,100.
So move, Sheedy.
Second, Lee.
Sheedy and Lee. Jim Lee. That's an aye.
Yes. Aye.
Greg Strange.
Aye.
Mr. Hands is not joined still. Tom Broussard is an aye. Dennis Sheedy.
Aye.
John Ventresco.
Aye.
Amanda Varela.
Aye.
Meredith Keach.
Aye.
Thank you all so much. That passes. Last but certainly in no way at all least, we have the Affordable Housing Trust. Application total project cost is $202,500. Just as a historical perspective, previous CPA funding was 145,000 in 2017, 100,000 in 2018, 200,000 in 2019, $500,000 in 2020, including emergency rental assistance in the amount of 250 grand, $177,500 in 2021. And I believe we are all familiar with this, but as a short project description for the general public, created by town meeting in 2008, the Affordable Housing Trust works to implement the goals and strategies of Easton's housing production plan and to provide resources and affordable housing options to low and moderate income residents. The Affordable Housing Trust requests CPA's 10% community housing set aside for fiscal year 23 projects and programs. Recent projects include support for creating group housing on Foundry Street for individuals with acquired brain injuries, support for nonprofit developer to create affordable family housing on Electric Avenue, Pequannock Avenue, and Morse Road, funding for a short-term emergency rental assistance program, and support for planning work and related administration for the town to meet its Chapter 40B requirements. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions that they'd like to discuss addition for this? Meredith?
I can't remember where the, I think it was Foundry Street you said for housing for traumatic brain injury. Wayne, can you remind me of that one? I'm forgetting.
Yes, ma'am. It's at 300 Foundry Street. And this is the former town property and starting in 2016, working with BAMSI. And if you've been by lately, it's almost done. The building is substantially complete. So it's pretty exciting to see.
Wayne, to the extent that we could, if there are pictures that are circulating around, it would certainly be great for, I think, this committee to see the benefits of the applications that we've approved and projects that have come to fruition. So feel free to have a little show and tell whenever you can show us the good stuff. That would be great.
Sure, thank you for that. A couple of years ago, we gave a bit of an update in the slideshow to the select board, and you may have been on the board at that time. And we're hoping to do something similar in the months ahead. So definitely could, roll that into a presentation for this group as well.
That would be great. Thank you, sir. So seeing no other questions, I would take a motion to accept and recommend that the CPA application for the Affordable Housing Trust in the amount of $202,500 be recommended.
So moved, Lee.
That is Lee.
Second, Sheedy.
That's Lee and Sheedy. And taking a roll call vote, Jim Lee.
Aye.
Greg Strange.
Oh, sorry about that. Aye.
Mr. Hands is still not here. Tom Broussard is an aye. Dennis Sheedy.
Aye.
John Ventresco.
Ventresco, aye.
Amanda Varela.
Aye.
Meredith Keach.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. So that item also passes.
Tom,
yes.
Before we move on, I have sort of a question. I'm retreating or backing up a little bit to pickleball.
Yes.
Theoretically warrants are due, I think, February 22nd or something, and obviously we can put in a draft placeholder. Would it make sense to recommend the pickleball warrant article for I forget the exact dollar amount, with a sort of a clear understanding that might be a bit of a placeholder number, so that there's the recommendation in there, and we can put in the draft warrant article and then obviously change the number closer to town meeting before the warrant goes to print.
I would be amenable to that. I probably would just ask that we then worded it to be between 4 and 6 courts, just to be transparent in the draft. And if that's okay with the committee, I would be amenable to recommending the amount of $573,650 for the pickleball courts for the draft. And I would just ask, hopefully I'm making sense. I want 6, but I also want to just make sure the town knows that we're doing this in such a way that we're trying to cap the amount of funds, and we might get there by 1 or 2 less courts. So is that fair, Wayne, Stephanie, to pose a draft like that? And then I wouldn't mind putting that before the committee. I think we all certainly support it.
So I guess the real question is, if the bids come in a little bit higher than that, are we saying that the board, the committee may not vote in support of a higher number?
Yeah, I think right now, the number that's before us is 573,650, and
Or
we may recommend
253
this,
or
but
something.
what was that, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. I think it's, the total cost is 573,650, but the amount requested would be 253,650.
Correct, 253,650. Thank you for making sure we're all on the same page. So yes, I think what we're saying is we all probably now agree to 253,650. If you come back with 500, either way, we're gonna have that question.
Yes.
Whether it's in the draft or not. So I think
Right.
what Wayne is saying, that we could indicate our posture to the general public, show our support for those people that are passionate advocates for the pickleball courts, and still reserve the right to fine tune it as we get more information.
Right, yes.
So
I would make that motion.
is there a second?
Second,
Excellent. So that's Lee and Ventresco. And again, we're making a motion to recommend in a draft format the approval of an additional $253,650 for the projected completion of maximum of 6, minimum of 4 pickleball courts, knowing we're going to get bids to get a more finite number. So taking a roll call vote, Jim Lee,
Aye.
Greg Strange,
Aye.
Tom Broussard is an aye, Dennis Sheedy,
Aye.
John Ventresco,
Ventresco, aye.
Amanda Varela,
Aye.
Meredith Keach.
Hi.
Excellent. Wayne, well done. I appreciate you raising your hand on that one and giving
Oh,
us. that
thank you. I
opportunity.
appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm gonna pause on the 555 Foundry Street just in case Ed solves his technical difficulties. So we can just move ahead to the one last item before that. This is the 2022 prospective CPA applications. Just to bring you all up to speed, Meredith, Stephanie, and I did converse over emails. We did look at the applications. In our assessment, the applications were not time critical, such that we had to accelerate them into this particular cycle. I think it is an important item for us to bring up, though, as we talk about school projects, and just as a newer person, hearing you all talk about what our role is and or isn't, and what should or it shouldn't be as we talk. I think these types of school projects and town projects in general, as we've talked about with the town hall, might give us a forum to have that discussion. And maybe there's a matrix to have that discussion. But Meredith, I'm certainly happy if I didn't summarize kind of what our takeaways were. The 2 projects, I believe, were one regarding new playgrounds behind RO, and I believe it's the tennis courts, which is the second one, if I remember correctly. Great. So we're not going to take those applications now. We'll put them into the normal work stream. And everybody needs to tell Mr. Hands I did the very best that I could in pushing 555 Foundry Street to as late as possible. But yes.
One more. I'm sorry. I'm being a bit of a pest this evening. I apologize.
Not at all. You're keeping us honest, so it's appreciated.
The concept that this group had thought about, a year or two ago, when we were thinking of redoing, how we solicit and consider CPA applications, was this sort of like 2-step concept, a letter of interest, which we, try to surface sort of nowish to consider in spring, to, then recommend or to invite an actual application, and the applicant would work with, staff and bring ideas to the board to, bring a better considered application forward. So, now that it's February, now is the time for us to be, I'm trying to think of a way to put this other than beating the bushes, but, to be soliciting potential applications, letters of interest. Now's the time to come forward with ideas. So clearly we've got a couple of letters of interest, and, we can work on getting those submitted the next month or two from the schools for those 2 projects. But I guess this is a plea or a request for everyone in this board to consider what else might be out there, how we do outreach. Obviously, I'll work with, work with Stephanie, and probably there'll be a press release and stuff on the town website and social media and such. but the most effective outreach is peer-to-peer. So if, this meeting or the March meeting, consideration on how we do better outreach and advocacy to get people to consider CPA and to come forward with letters of interest.
Well said. And Wayne, you said it in greater detail that I did not add. We do intend to consider the school letters of interest. And I think to your point, we need to talk as a team on who and where and when we want to solicit from other spots and locations in the town. And so I think those letters do come up. My thought is that by my explanation that we were basically looking at 555 Foundry as not just a letter of intent, but also the application and to get it in now. And so you're spot on. I think we're saying the same thing, and you used more words and were much more articulate than I was. So it's appreciated. I think hopefully we can get by our quote unquote business for the May meeting. And then in the meetings to come, even beginning in the next one, we start having those discussions, to your point, about the letters of interest. Well said. Greg, do you want to give us an update on the iron fence at Foundry Street? And I'm hoping that you may be able to articulate maybe some of Ed's thoughts if you have had any discussions with him.
Well, Tom, it's not often people use my name and articulate in the same sentence, so I want to thank you. So a couple things. First of all, I appreciate you guys for considering this. I brought it up for all the reasons I mentioned at the last meeting. Sometimes it's not easy to make the sausage, and it's not pretty to see the sausage made. And I was under the impression until the end of last week or so that this application was going to be handled by historical. And when the agenda came out, in fact, I must be losing my mind. I didn't think 555 was on the agenda. So I remember I sent a note to Stephanie and I said, hey, can we put on the agenda for next month, 555 plus what we're going to discuss in executive session. And Stephanie said, well, obviously it has to be approved by the board. So I am prepared. I didn't think I could discuss the fence tonight if we wanted to, but there is not an application, obviously, that you guys have reviewed. Or
I don't think we have to, Greg. As long as we feel like we have time with the folks that are involved, I think if we could have it next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that's best.
Yeah, that's fine. Ed could join. I know he feels strongly on this.
Correct.
Great.
But obviously Blanche Ames won out tonight, so.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody in the committee have an issue with this?
Oh,
Hearing none. Okay, so we'll put a pin in 555 Foundry Street. Greg, you'll come to us with information and an application for our next monthly meeting. And I appreciate that. All right, I think that there is no further business that we have not addressed. There are no items that weren't reasonably anticipated. I do believe that we have an update that will require us to go into an executive session under purpose 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. If the chair has declared that an open meeting, which I am declaring, would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, not to reconvene in open session. I know we need to invite Stephanie Danielson. Did Wayne usually join us as well? Wayne, and we do not have anybody else to invite. So with that, I will take that motion to go into executive session.
So motion.
I'll call that almost a dead tie. I'll give it to Jim Lee just by an edge, and second to Dennis Sheedy. And then
two very enthusiastic, high energy motions.
So I think you also need to include in the motion not to return to open meeting.
Yep, absolutely not. And I did mention that at the beginning, not to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Nope, that's okay. It doesn't hurt to say it again as well. I'll take a roll call vote. Find my people. Someday I'll have it memorized. Jim Lee.
Yeah, aye.
Greg Strange.
Strange, aye.
Dennis Sheedy.
Aye.
John Francesco.
Fresco, aye.
Amanda Varela.
Aye.
Meredith Keach.
Aye.
And Tom Broussard is an aye.